The ripple of secrets. Justin had always been the pride of his father, Mr. Reuben. After studying overseas, he returned to his hometown, carrying with him the air of success and charisma that made him the talk of the town. Justin was ready to settle down, and as tradition demanded, he sought his father's blessing to choose a wife. The town was filled with young women eager to catch Justin's eye. His wealth, education, and charisma made him an ideal suitor. Yet, Justin was uninterested in the polished facets of many who sought his attention. He craved depth and authenticity, qualities he found in Evelyn. Evelyn was not just another girl. She was a story of resilience, an orphan who had worked tirelessly to see herself and her younger sister through school after the tragic death of their parents. Her beauty was as undeniable as her strength of character. Despite her humble background, Evelyn exuded a quiet dignity that set her apart. Justin admired her intelligence, kindness, and determination, and soon he was smitten. When Justin informed his father about Evelyn, Mr. Reuben was initially thrilled. "Show me her picture," he exclaimed. But the moment Justin did, his father's expression darkened. His excitement evaporated, replaced by unease. "No, Justin," Mr. Reuben said abruptly. "You cannot marry her." "Why not?" Justin demanded, his voice firm. "She's everything a man could want in a wife." Mr. Reuben shifted uncomfortably. I just don't think she's suitable for our family." Justin was shocked. His father was usually logical, but now he offered no clear reason. Frustrated yet determined, Justin resolved to bring Evelyn home so his father could meet her in person. He believed her charm and graceful charisma would erase whatever reservations his father had. On the day Justin planned to introduce Evelyn, Mr. Reuben said he had an urgent business meeting. "I am sorry, son," he said, avoiding Justin's gaze. "We'll reschedule." This happened severally. Suspicious, Justin decided to proceed. On one occasion, Justin and Evelyn arrived at their grand house, her nerves evident, but her smile steady. As she stepped into the living room, her eyes landed on a large framed photograph of Mr. Reuben. Her breath hitched and her composure crumbled. "Who is that man?" she asked. Her voice trembled. "That's my father," Justin replied, confused by her sudden distress. "Is Mr. Reuben your father?" "Yes, of course," replied Justin. Evelyn's face paled. I have to go." Without another word, she fled out of the house, leaving Justin stunned. For days, Evelyn refused to answer Justin's call, nor to see him. When he finally confronted his father, demanding an explanation, Mr. Reuben remained tight-lipped, his guilt evident. Justin was at a loss, torn between his love for Evelyn and his confusion over her reaction. Eventually, Evelyn summoned the courage to reveal the truth to Justin. Tears streamed down her face as she recounted her harrowing past. I was only 15 years old when my parents died in a ghastly motor accident, she began. I was faced with the responsibility of taking care of myself and my younger sister. I started doing some menial jobs so we could survive. My auntie, Madam Comfort, who owned a restaurant, took us in to live with her, and then I worked as a waitress in her restaurant. The restaurant was a front for an insidious business. Madam Comfort was not nurturing employers. She was a predator in disguise, profiting off the desperation of young girls. I began my work cleaning tables and serving customers food and drinks, but quickly I realized that the restaurant catered for men who sought more than food. The shift from being a waitress was gradual and manipulative. Madam Comfort would start with veiled threats. You will make more money if you just smile a little longer, touch a little softer. When I refused to do such, Madam Comfort withheld my stipend and locked me up in her room. My first encounter with a customer was to entertain Mr. Ruben, a wealthy patron, in a private room. I tried to resist, but Madam Comfort threatened me. She would remind me of how she gave my sister and I roof over our heads and fed us. Her callous remarks still echo in my ears. Mr. Ruben shattered my innocence, leaving my body bruised and my spirit broken. I sobbed silently in the darkness, feeling the weight of my vulnerability. This became my life. Night after night, I endured the violent desires of men who saw me as nothing but a commodity. Each encounter left me with a physical and emotional scar. Madam Comfort was very cruel. She employed psychological manipulation to keep her victims compliant. She told me that I am tainted and ruined, and that no man would ever love me nor marry me after knowing what I have become. She sneered that we should be grateful she gave us roof over our heads and fed us. Over time, I began to internalize those words. I learned to dissociate, retreating to a mental space where pain and humiliation took a better part of me. I felt unworthy of kindness or love. The shame was suffocating me. Even in the moments of fleeting kindness from my fellow victims, I found it difficult to trust. I feared that living would only lead to a worse suffering, and that my younger sister would face the consequences of my defiance. My breaking point came after a particular violent assault by a drunken patron. I lay off the cold floor of the room, staring at the ceiling, and something inside of me snapped. I realized that if I do not escape, I will die of this abuse. The thought terrified me more than anything. Using the tips I had secretly stashed away for months, I made a plan with my younger sister to escape. That escape marked the beginning of a new set of challenges. For weeks, we wandered the streets with no shelter, no food, and constant fear of being found. Hunger gnawed at us, and the cold nights tested our resolve. We found refuge in an abandoned building and occasionally relied on the kindness of strangers who offered scraps of food. I started hawking with my sister. One day, my sister, exhausted and frail, fainted because of hunger, attracted the help of a good woman who helped me to secure a job of cleaning house and offices. I could combine the cleaning job with hawking of fruits with my sister. Although the work was exhausting, but decent enough for me to take care of my sister and I. Slowly, we began to build our lives. I enrolled in weekend classes. Using the same determination, I excelled academically. Education became my sanctuary, giving me purpose and a path forward. Despite my progress, I struggled with psychological scars of my past. I had nightmares of Madam Comfort, and her abuses haunted me often, leaving me trembling in the dark. Relationships were nearly impossible. I pushed people away, fearing rejection if they learned the truth about my past. However, with the unwavering support of my younger sister and the therapist, I began to heal gradually. I graduated with honors in business administration, securing stable jobs that allowed me to take care of my family. More importantly, I began volunteering at shelter, sharing my story with other survivors, and advocating for system change. Justin, hearing this story, was stunned. Anger surged through him like a wildfire. He stormed home and confronted his father. "How could you do this?" he roared. "Do you know what you've done to her? To me?" Mr. Reuben hung his head in shame. "I was a different man then, Justin. I regret every moment of it. I was blinded by lust and power." "That's not good enough," Justin shouted. "Your actions destroyed lives. You owe her an apology." Mr. Reuben, humbled and remorseful, agreed to meet Evelyn. He fell on his knees before her, tears in his eyes. "I am so sorry for the pain I caused you. I was a selfish, vile man. Please forgive me." Evelyn, though deeply hurt, saw the sincerity in his apology. She turned to Justin, who had stood by her despite the revelations. His love for her had not wavered, and his actions spoke louder than words. "Evelyn," Justin said softly, "I love you. I don't care about the past. I want a future with you." Evelyn wrestled with her emotions. Could she overcome the scars of her past and accept the love of a man whose father had wronged her? Slowly, she nodded. "Justin, I love you too, but it will take time to heal." Together, they decided to move forward. Mr. Reuben vowed to make amends, not just to Evelyn, but to all those he had wronged. The road ahead was not easy, but love, honesty, and forgiveness became the foundation of a new chapter in their lives. As Justin and Evelyn stood hand in hand, they realized that their story was not just about love, but about redemption, resilience, and the power of confronting the past to build a better future. However, Madam Comfort's reaction upon seeing Evelyn years later was a complex mix of shame, disbelief, and unease. It happened at a community event where Evelyn, now radiant and confident, attended with her husband, a kind, successful man who adored her, clad in an elegant dress that exuded grace. Evelyn carried herself with a poise Madam Comfort had never imagined. Her once vulnerable gaze was replaced with a piercing strength that seemed to strip away the power Madam Comfort once wielded over her. The moment their eyes met, Madam Comfort froze. Her confident smirk faltered, and her posture stiffened. The laughter and idle chatter around her seemed to fade as the weight of her past sins bore down on her like an invisible chain. She fidgeted, her hands trembling lightly as memories of her cruelty towards Evelyn surfaced unbidden. Evelyn didn't look away. Her gaze was steady, unflinching, and held a quiet intensity that spoke volumes. There was no anger, no malice, just an unspoken truth that seemed to magnify Madam Comfort's shame. She averted her eyes, her once commanding demeanor shrinking into something almost pitiful. The power dynamic had shifted entirely, and for the first time, Madam Comfort felt small. She attempted a weak smile, perhaps hoping to mask her discomfort or seek some form of redemption, but it only came across as forced and hollow. Evelyn, however, didn't need to say a word. Her very presence, her survival, her triumph, her happiness was the loudest rebuke Madam Comfort could ever receive. As Evelyn walked past her with her husband's arm gently resting on her back, Madam Comfort felt the sting of regret deepen. It wasn't just shame for her actions, it was the realization that Evelyn had not only survived, but had become everything Madam Comfort had tried to strip away: a woman of dignity, strength, and unwavering spirit.